Hey everyone, this is a video about the combat mechanics in the game Forspoken. I'm just going to start right off with the basic shots. You tap R2 to shoot off a pebble. If you repeatedly tap R2, or if you tap it once and then hold it, you'll get the 4-hit string. The 4th hit is stronger, it's always a critical hit. If you are dashing in flow, you will get the parkour attack. Depending on which way you're dashing, you'll get a different animation. So if you're dashing back, the backward parkour attack. If you're dashing to the rightward animation, and the leftward animation. There's also an aerial parkour attack. Your primary attack magic can be charged up. For each magic tree, which there are 4 trees, 4 colors, you get 3 different types of attack spells, and each of these have 3 levels of charge. So here's Burst Shot being charged up. And if you have a charged spell ready, you can press triangle to cancel it if you want to get out of the way quickly. So yeah, Burst Shot 1, you can use it pretty quickly like this. It's quite powerful. But if you charge it up, you get a stronger one, and then finally level 3 is the strongest one. And each of these levels of charge can also be individually upgraded one time to make it even more powerful, and it's a significant power increase. It's about 30%. In addition to your primary attack magic, you also have support spells. So this, for example, is Bind. I get to pick where I want to use it, and when I use it, any vulnerable enemies in that vicinity will be bound by binds. It's an example of support magic. I will go through the different support spells deeper into the video. There's also surge magic. So you can see the triangle on the bottom right. When it's all lit up, the top symbol is glowing, and if I press L2 and R2, I can unleash this large attack, which also has 3 different levels of charge that you can unlock, all of which can be upgraded. Then you have to use regular attack spells and support spells to build back up to having Surge again. And you know, Surge will preserve between fights, so if you have Surge at the end of a fight, you go into your next fight, you'll still have it. Whereas if you've used it, then that'll carry over. So I wanted to say something about the blue surge magic. The level 1 blue surge magic actually draws enemies into it before going into the level 2 and 3. So it's actually a way to group enemies together. It's really cool to have this extra utility with the spell. You're not just doing damage, but you're able to kind of manipulate all the enemies to be in one spot. Another thing to know about surge magic is sometimes it disrupts the enemy AI, so like you can get enemies to exhibit different behavior by using surge magic. When enemies attack you, they have 3 different types of attacks. They have regular attacks, which can be defended against automatically by something called Cuff's Protection. Basically, you just don't take very much damage, but it also allows you to do counterattacks called Cuff Counter, and Cuff Counter has a more precise version called Precision Counter. It's kind of like a perfect parry in a way. It's not exactly a parry. I mean, you take damage and then you restore health. Enemies also have piercing attacks. They are purple flashes as the indicator for them. You cannot do Cuff Counters against them. You can dodge regular attacks and piercing attacks simply by pressing circle. If you are in flow, you can repeatedly dodge just by holding it. The third type of enemy attack, the unblockable attack, is indicated by the red flash. You cannot dodge it like that. You have to literally fully avoid it, like get out of there before it arrives, because holding circle is not going to work as if you're like running through the hitbox. There are status effects, so if I go under Phrase Magic and use Screen, for example, this is a support spell that will give me defense up. You can see the little shield symbol in the bottom left. You can knock enemies down When you knock enemies down, they become vulnerable to something called a killer blow. This restores health, and it restores the defenseless state, which will happen if you lose all of your health. Cuff's protection will be gone. You will be at risk of dying. There's another mechanic called Cuff Crush, where if you run up an enemy and then press triangle, you can slam onto the ground. It's not a very strong attack, but it gives a lot of knockdowns. It is very stamina heavy though, it costs a lot of stamina to use it. I tend to not really use it. Alright, now I need to talk about a very key aspect of this game's combat, which is something called spell combos or shortcutting to the highest level of charge. So for this, normally if you want to get level 3 spell, you have to charge it all the way up. But if you do one of 5 things, you can shortcut to the highest level charge you have unlocked. So, what are the 5 ways to do it? Well, you can do your basic attack string and then hold R2. That will instantly give you a level 3 charge. You can do a parkour attack and then hold R2. That will instantly give you a level 3 charge. You can use a support spell and then hold R2. That will give you a level 3 charge instantly. You can perform a dodge roll. That will give you a level 3 charge. And finally, you can use the switching spells. There are specific spells to switch to different types of magic. And that will also give you a level 3 charge after using it. This is really important because it allows you to put out more damage with your stronger spells without having to sit there and charge it up. Now it's also worth noting that sometimes it is good just to use the level 1 spell, like Burst Shot by itself, just level 1 Burst Shot. Throwing it repeatedly is actually quite strong, so, you know, kind of depends on the situation. It's nice to have a lot of support spells unlocked so that you can like utilize them to instantly shortcut. There are elemental weaknesses, so like certain enemies will be weak to red magic, resistance to blue magic, you know. There's also double resistances and double weaknesses, so this is a whole variety of different situations that encourages you to switch between your different types of magic. Speaking of switching, you can switch by bringing up this menu by holding L1 and R1. Then you can use the right stick to select which one you want to use. You can also swap through it by using the D-pads left and right. And finally, you can swap by making a swipe motion on the touchpad. So like swipe left, swipe right, swipe down, swipe up. Alright, now what I want to talk about are each of the attack spells and what they're like. So for Burst Shot, I already talked about this a bit. It is really good. It's like a mid-range projectile that has a large area of effect, or at least a respectable area of effect, but notably, it actually goes through certain enemy defenses. So for example, the errant soldiers have shields, but a Burst Shot hitting the front of their shield will still do full damage. The Recreant Knights have armor, and you're supposed to attack their wings, but you can attack their suit of armor, and you will do full damage with Burst Shot, so it's really good. Shield Shot, it would be good for damage if a regular enemy attack hits it, because if you just release it, you shoot a lot of little pebbles, and it's not great as an attack. But if an enemy does hit the shield while it's up with a regular non-piercing attack, that's how you make use of this. It seems, maybe it's kind of niche and doesn't really get to shine because of the different situations with enemies having armor and stuff in the early game, and then when you unlock red magic later, it's sort of like you have other powerful stuff to use. So I feel like Shield Shot kind of doesn't get a chance to shine so much. Scatter Shot, this one actually fires while charging. So as you're charging up, it will be firing, and then you unleash the final blast. And you know, the shortcut aspect works with this as well, so if I do the basic string, I can immediately have the level 3 charge and unleash it. I guess the thing about Scattershot is it just has a lot of range. It outranges your other spells in purple magic. So if you need to hit something far away, it's pretty good. But I think Burst Shot's kind of the MVP of these three. Oh, as I'm going over red magic now, I should also talk about the basic attack, the Slice. It's a 4-hit combo. The aerial parkour looks like this, forward parkour looks like that, back parkour is the stab, leftward and rightward. Another interesting thing about the parkour attack with Slice is that if there is an enemy, like this doesn't look like it reaches very far, but this will travel to enemies. So like if there is an enemy far in front of you and you do the forward parkour attack with Slice, it has a lot of range. It's actually pretty good. So Arc Slice, it goes around you in a ring, so it's good when you're surrounded by enemies. And as you charge it up to level 2 and then level 3, it's just stronger and bigger. It does have an interesting property, which is that if you use it in the air, it's actually like this forward leap into a slam down, and the level 2 version of it unleashes this almost projectile. It's like fire travels for quite a ways. It's linear, but it reaches really far. And the level 3 version, of course, also has that property, except it's stronger. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about Rage Slice. Rage Slice is a series of punches ending in a fiery explosion. As you're charging it up, she's punching. Now there's actually additional movement to this, so if you press in different directions while charging it up, you can actually sidestep, or you can backflip with it. So you have a little bit of maneuverability with it. If you shortcut to the level 3 Rage Slice, there is like one bit of movement there. So if you want to like do a sidestep or something, you have time to do that. Now that final explosion of Rage Slice is really powerful, and when you think about the fact that you can shortcut to the highest level charge with a parkour attack, for example, and just unleash the explosion by itself, it's really powerful. Now I want to talk about Blast Slice. This is your long range option with red magic. You throw these spears that explode once they impale an enemy. There's an aerial version of this as well, where she will jump up and slam down. So you can get that area of effect with it if you use it in the air. But I'd say it's also a respectable option. I guess all the red magics are respectable. I just think that Rage Slice has the crazy DPS potential with the explosion. Blast Slice also has a property when throwing the spears. So if you throw it while pressing forward, it's like this. If you throw it neutral, it's like this. If I throw it while retreating, you actually get some defensive movement there, but the animation is longer. So if you're more aggressive with it, then you can output it more quickly. You can also go sideways with it. Alright, I'm going to talk about blue magic now. So blue magic's kind of interesting. The basic spell string is not a string, it's just a single throw. You throw a ball of water. When you throw the ball of water will then spawn around you, and it will circle around you. You can have up to 3 of them. Now these orbs get expended when you do a charge attack. It will make the charge attack do more damage. And because the spell string is a single throw. That means you can throw one orb and it instantly go into your level 3. The parkour throw is like this: back parkour, right parkour, left parkour, and aerial parkour. Alright, so fan bolts. It's like this triple shot. It travels through enemies. It can hit groups of enemies in front of you pretty well. It also seems to give a lot of knockdowns. The second level charge, you get 5 projectiles. And the highest level charge, you get 9 projectiles. The aerial shot is just similar to the ground shot. Now we have cluster bolts. This one is an area of effect that rains on the enemy. So here's the level 1. You just get a lot of projectiles coming down from above in that general circle. I believe the DPS is quite respectable if you can hit all these shots. The problem is, oftentimes you're not fighting enemies that are large enough to be getting hit by all of this. So, you know, it is some mixed results, I suppose. Alright, so finally Chain Bolt. This is great for single enemies. It's like sniper mode. It's a very long range, powerful single hit. It does fire as you charge up. And if all the shots connect, then you get extra damage. And there is something really interesting about all of these prov attack spells. Now, all of them, out of the air, after firing it, you can go into air dash. So what does that mean? That means, after firing this, I can dash out. And what's interesting about that is that the air dash can immediately go into a parkour attack. So you can cancel the air dash into a parkour attack. And then, the parkour attack chains right into the level 3. So you have this beautiful thing happening, where if you jump, parkour, level 3, air dash, parkour, level 3. This works with all of this. So with Chain Bolt, for example, and with Cluster Bolts, so as you can see, you can actually get a lot of damage output using this air dash canceling technique. Alright, now I'm going to talk about Olas's magic, green magic. So this is again a 4-hit string. The 4th hit is the triple dart, and the first 3 hits are single darts. As the darts hit enemies, it implants into enemies. And then when you use a charge attack against an enemy that has darts in it, it becomes more effective. It's actually quite important to get the darts into enemies. Alright, so parkour attack. It's this 3 darts, backward parkour attack, rightward parkour attack, leftward parkour attack, and aerial parkour attack. All of them shoot 3 darts. Pulse Dart seems to be good for single targets because it just shoots out this beam of light and it can critical hit enemies if you hit them in the rear and everything. So basically you dart an enemy up and unleash Pulse Dart. Pretty good. There's also Seeker Dart. This is like lightning from the sky. As I demonstrate them here, it doesn't seem so impressive because you really do need to get the darts into enemies to really see the power of these spells. It's like for each dart you're getting the effect of the hit, which is really nice. Seeker Dart is good because it has an area of effect around each lightning bolt, but because you're striking from above with it, you're not going to be typically getting critical hits with it too much, because critical hits happen when you hit an enemy in the rear. You can like force a critical hit that way. So if there are like groups of enemies at a moderate distance, then Seeker Dart seems pretty good. Storm Dart, this one's really cool. This is like the ultimate area of effect. Right around Frey, it's a big explosion. And again, it's better if there are darts embedded into enemies. The level 2 and the level 3. This is just amazing to clear out like weak enemies as you're like wandering around the post game, for example. When you have Storm Dart charged, Frey enters this like sorceress mode. She's just drifting around like this. So you have a unique movement with this, which looks really cool in my opinion. Alright, so now that we've gone through all of the basic attacks, attack strings, parkour attacks, and attack magic, I would like to go over the support spells. So, starting with purple magic, we have Bind. I talked about this earlier. It binds enemies with vines. Some enemies are invulnerable to it. You start with this, and it's very useful. It is a very good spell. Tendril. Now this will swing around and do damage in a wide effect. It's good against weak enemies. It will also heal you if it hits the enemies around you. Leech will cure poison, and poison is actually a pretty nasty status effect in this game. You take damage extremely fast. It doesn't kill you, but it sends your health to 1 basically, to the lowest value, very quickly. So Leech will cure poison. If you upgrade it, it will also give you passive healing. I talked about Screen. Screen will give you defense up. Burrow will find items in the vicinity and give them to you. It's a really good way to collect loot. Prime is a landmine basically. It sits there and then when disturbed it will explode. It is very powerful. Disperse is another spell that you start with. It is a turret in the form of a plant. It will fire all around it, including above, to flying enemies. And it's extremely good. You start with it and it's extremely good. I noticed that Frey's basic kit at the very start of unlocking her magical abilities is actually very respectable because it leads off with Burst Shot, and you do have the other two available. And you also have Bind and you have Disperse. So those are really good things to start with. Implant shoots a projectile that will then implant itself in the enemy. Once the implant is there, if you hit the enemy again, you will do extra damage, and this will continue on for a while. Alright, Sila's support spells. You have Charge. Frey just goes forward like this. It can be done in the air. Charge also has the property of giving you a lot of knockdowns. Enemies will be on the ground and you'll be able to hit them with a killer blow or set up for other things. Bombardier. This one is a kick where she kicks an enemy. The enemy goes flying, and then when the enemy lands, there is an explosion which can then damage other enemies. So this one has to be used a little bit strategically because to get the best usage out of it, you'd probably want to kick an enemy into another group of enemies, so like the spacing of the enemies is important for that. But it is just a powerful hit in general, so sometimes it's just good to use. Now I'm going to talk about Aegis. This one will fix your attack or defense down property, like if you get a negative status effect. But more importantly, if you upgrade it, it will give you attack up. Now it has that little symbol down there, attack up, but that symbol is not really exactly indicative of how much attack up you get. Like there are different amounts of attack up. Like sometimes it's not much and other times it's more. So, you know, different spells and effects will give you different amounts of attack up, which is not indicated by the UI. Fusillade, this will create some swords around you. When you use attack magic, these swords will also strike occasionally. It's just great for getting extra damage. And it seems in general, the red magic is about like fiery offense, and so you get stuff like this, attack up or Fusillade here to get more damage. Beacon. This one, it's not so important. It will restore stamina more quickly while it's active. It apparently also has this other property where enemies can spot you from further away, or they can find you more easily if it's active, because it's like a beacon of light. Alright, Legion. So Legion creates these extra fiery soldiers. They're kind of like, they're pretty dumb, like zombie-like helpers. They're pretty weak, they're slow, they try to attack, they do their best, they're not very good at what they do. But there's something else about this that's pretty important, and that is that enemies will often target these enemies instead of you. So you can distract enemies using these. That distraction is pretty helpful when you have like a lot of archers coming at you, for example, and you want those archers to not focus all their fire on you to give you some breathing room. As in this game, you are going to be fighting like groups of enemies, and there's a lot of dynamic situations where you're getting hit from multiple angles. Crucible. It's a pretty great way to get attack up while you're inside the ring. If you try to flow through this, you cannot flow through it directly. It's going to make you dodge, and that's pretty slow. You can just run through the flames, you can walk through the flames, and as mentioned before, you can do the parkour slice to get through the flames. I haven't mentioned this yet, but you could use this slide kick to get through the flames too. Alright, so Fire Trap. This is just an explosion that will hit regularly at this location. Again, just great to get more damage. Alright, so onward to Prov's blue magic support spells. Nader, this one will poison enemies. It is like a little snake-like projectile that swims through the air. It touches enemies, gives them poison. Now unfortunately, when you poison an enemy, it is not nearly as good as when enemies poison you. So while this does help a little bit, it's not so impactful. I'd say it helps most against enemies that have an auto-heal property. You'll see like ogres and Goliaths just like healing all the time, and if you hit them with this, it will negate that effect and then reverse it, so that's pretty good. Broom, this is this makes it so that enemies cannot see you very well. Enemies can't find you, but this has a secondary property of ending the battle oftentimes, because you're not in combat anymore, because no enemy has detected you. Which also has the effect of resetting your grade back down to C, as the next time you attack an enemy, you'll be re-entering battle, so the grade will reset, so be careful with that. Ablution, this one is like, just like Beacon actually, when you upgrade it. This makes stamina charge faster, and it's not so important, but something to remember is that just casting a support spell is actually useful because you can use it to go into level 3 charge. You can also use it to obtain grade. Like using support spells gives you more grade. So just by having this, you can use it to your advantage, even though the effect of it is not very important. Alright, Inundation. This one gives you more critical hits. And interestingly, like the UI does not have any... Like, there's no indicator for anything special. I mean, you can see Frey's, like, there's, like, this crystal-y effect on her arm, and, like, there are effects happening here. Alb. So, this one is a defensive mechanic. If you get hit by a piercing or unblockable attack, if you've previously used Alb on yourself, that single hit will do less damage. And this is even more icy looking. She's just covered in frost. Maelstrom. So Maelstrom is pretty cool. There's a little area of effect pillar here. What's interesting about it is that projectiles cannot travel through it. So you can actually use it as a shield against projectiles. And Frey can go inside of this. So you can hide from like oncoming projectiles from all angles if you're just like hiding inside of here. Or just put it in front of you. It also does some regular damage if an enemy is inside of it. Eager, this just is an area of effects kind of explosion of water. Oubliette. Now this is the closest thing to bind that is not bind. It shoots out a little ball of water. If it hits an enemy, the enemy can become trapped inside the ball of water. They're kind of bound inside of it for a while. until you hit them again. You can then set up for different things, such as like setting up Crucible or Aegis while they're bound inside the water. Once you hit the ball of water that they are inside, it will explode and do damage. Alright, so let me now talk about the green magic support spells. So Distortion, it fires off a projectile, then that creates a large area of effect. Inside the area of effect, enemies will be confused and be attacking each other. So this is another great way to get groups of enemies to stop harassing you and start harassing each other. It's like a... I don't know, it's just good. It's good to use. It keeps you safe. Alright, Aggression. This will shoot out a bunch of darts, and as green magic is reliant on enemies being embedded with darts, this is a great way to embed a bunch of darts very quickly. The spell is very snappy, and notice how fast it is charging up compared to Distortion. You can actually see it is recharging, as all these have cooldowns. This one's recharging much faster. So, and you know, as you attack enemies, as you use parkour attacks, you can build this up much faster as well. Sublimation. Sublimation will heal you. It will create a passive healing effect. Compensation. Compensation, it makes it so that when you dodge enemy attacks, your surge magic will get a bit of extra charge. So if you don't have surge magic ready and you use this, it just helps build it up faster. Suppression will hide you. Enemies cannot see you. You can run around in this. If you decide to go into flow, however, it will break the illusion. Displacement. This will create another fray. It is just an illusion. Enemies will be drawn to this and attack it. And then you can get better angles, like hitting them from the back and stuff. Just another good diversion tactic. Compulsion. This one is like 3 mines in the air that do a lot of damage. They start from fray, then travel out in 3 directions. They're quite powerful. It's a pretty good attack. Projection. So this is just boom. You shoot out this spear basically, and yeah, it's just another attack you can do. I almost forgot the switching spells. Cut and Run, which is like a landmine. Drag and Drop, which pulls the enemy in. Up and Away, which jumps you up in the air and replenishes 2 orbs. And Hide and Seek, which moves you incredibly fast and implants darts. These are really powerful. They give you level 3 attack magic after using them. Alright, I believe I've now talked about pretty much everything I've wanted to talk about. That's pretty much it. Some of these spells don't get much use, some of them are really useful. Some of them are more useful in speedrunning or more useful outside of speedrunning because of the requirements of what you need to unlock certain stuff. Oh, I guess there's the grade system as well. Honestly, there could be an entire breakdown of the grade system, but what you need to know basically is that if you get hit, it will cause at least 200 some points of grade damage, which will take you down a full letter grade. And if you're at star grade, it'll knock you all the way down to B rank. So getting hit is pretty bad. If you lose all your health, you will lose Cuffs Protection. This will instantly tank your grade down to E grade. It's really bad. At E grade, you're doing half normal damage. At C grade, you're doing normal damage. And at star grade, you're doing double damage. So there's that. Also, if you're in star grade for a full minute, then it will reset back to C grade. It can actually be strategic to take hits intentionally to go back down to B grade only. Once you unlock precision counters or cuff counters, a precision counter will give you more grade than you will lose for taking an enemy hit. So this can actually be used to reset star grade at regular intervals to keep star grade alive. There's also the concept of stale moves. So if you do the same thing over and over, such as doing support spell after support spell, the amount of grade you'll receive for doing that is less and less each time, so you want to kind of mix it up. Another thing to know is that Surge Magic gives you a lot of grade, gives you like 150. So Surge Magic is really good, not just for attacking enemies, but for building grade. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't know, that might be about everything. There could be more. And you know, there's a lot of like specific moments in combat I haven't covered. I haven't covered like certain enemies like Pitiless Arbiters and how they work and everything. Or like how certain boss fights work and stuff. But overall, that's just basically a rundown of the mechanics. And thank you for watching.